All right, Mr. McCarthy here with our first video tutorial for Photoshop. We're starting up Photoshop for the first time. Let's get right to it. Okay. To open Photoshop, go to your Launchpad, and you need to swipe over. This is the Photoshop we're working with. To save time for this video, I have already opened Photoshop, so I'm going to click out here. And when Photoshop opens, this is my empty panel here. So let me just point out a couple of things on this empty panel I want to show you. This is your move button, or select. Well, this is not the selection tool. This is the move tool, and you should basically always be on this move tool unless you have a reason to be on something else. And the reason for that is the move tool does the most for you. It's your normal state of Photoshop. Okay, so be on your move tool. It does a number of different things. I may show you a few during this tutorial. Okay, the other thing I want to point out to you is this panel on the side and the layers panel. Layers panel is one of the most important panels to work with, and I will demonstrate that for you in just a few. But notice how these open up. The little right arrow puts it back. Channels, okay, lots of different stuff here. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to get started with a new project. So we're going to go to File, New, and for this project, what I would like you to do, notice that this starts in inches, and it should start in inches for you. What I want you to do is go ahead and switch to pixels, and this is the size I want you to start with. It only pops up for me because I practiced it just before doing this video. So I'd like you to start with 1200 by 1200 by 250 pixels. Don't worry about your resolution, for those of you who know what that is. Okay? Everything else is good to go. Change to pixels, 1200, 250, and then go ahead and click OK. This is the size of the image that we are going to build. Okay? Before we do that, or in the process of doing that, I guess I should say, let's open up some images. So I want you to go to your Compositional Elements folder on your desktop, double click it, open it up. You should have 6 compositional elements folders in this compositional element folder. I only have one, rule of thirds. For the purpose of this video, that will be enough. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out 3 photos for rule of thirds, and I'm going to open them up. Here's the deal with opening photos. You will feel the desire to pull your photo into this area. Okay? And if you do, take a look at what happens. It actually will open up. But notice this little X on it. This X and these border squares, they represent the mid stage of placing a document. To actually place a document, we go to this move tool. I told you it was important. Here we go. We click the move tool, and it asks, do you want to place the file? If you say yes, place, there it goes. It lands. Let me show you something here. Your layers panel, this is the file. It's got this long name. You see it. It's because that was the name when I pulled it off the web, and I never changed it. It replicates here. This little icon here with these little squares stacked indicates a smart image. Smart images are used mainly for building websites. It collects metadata, and it's not something that we need. In fact, it gets in the way of the project that we're working on right now. So I'm going to ask you not to place your documents. I'm going to throw this away by dragging this layer into the trash. So we have trash, new, what is this? New, create a new layer. This is folder. This is mask, effects, etc. So we'll take a look at those in a few. So what I'd like you to do to open up new files is to take this image, whoops, not that way, and to drag it on top of the Photoshop icon. And in doing so, it opens without any extra steps. I'm going to open up another one here. And I'm going to open up a third. Okay. So I won't need this folder anymore, so I'm going to put that away. And I'm going to open up my Photoshop panel here. So what I want to show you is all of those images are open, but they're open in different tabs. So if I click through my tabs, I see the images that I've either created or opened. Okay? So for our purposes today, I'm just going to shrink this a little bit. We don't need all that space. We are going to pull these images on to this image. And to do that, we need to separate it from the other three. So I'm actually going to grab the top of the tab here. I'm going to pull it down here. And you see that it's its own tab. We'll just work with it this way. Okay, I'm going to start with this photo. And make sure I can see my tool here. This is my move tool. I'm on it. I'm going to click this photo. And I just dragged it onto this image. So now, when I open up my layers panel and I'm on this image, see how it changes? This is just an image that is a background, so one layer, that's a background layer. Here, I have two layers. I have the white background that I started with, and when I drag that image on top of it, I created a layer one, okay? And if I move this around, you can see it changing on here. Not that you'll need to do that, but just for the sake of this assignment, okay? So I don't need this photo here anymore because I've got it represented here, so I'm going to X that out. I'm going to grab this photo now. I'm going to pull this down. Ooh, that's a big photo. See that? Whoops, did I bring it back? I did. Let me just brought the photo back on top of itself. Here, we see that it's there. We'll deal with the size in just a few minutes. For now, put it away. Say don't save. And then here's our little puppy. I love puppies. All right, so I'm going to pull this over. And there's our little puppy. Much smaller image than that second one. Okay? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pull this back into this area. Okay? And the reason I'm going to do that is so that the image here is directly connected to my layers panel. It'll still work if it's down here, but I don't know, I like it closer. Back to this image, don't need it anymore because I've collected them on here. All right, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to resize the images so that they all fit within this panel. Okay, we're going to start with the little puppy here because the puppy is on the topmost layer. Okay, so these layers is the topmost layer. We can move these layers around. So if I move layer 2 above layer 3, as I'm going to attempt to do here. There we go. Puppy looks like it disappeared. It didn't. It's right here. If we want to look at it, I can turn the eyeball off the top layer so that we're looking through. That top layer is still there. It's just not visible at the moment. If I turn the layer back on, there it is. Okay? Put the puppy back on top. Let's deal with this one first. So we're going to resize this. And the way we're going to resize it is through the transform function. Your keystroke for that is Command T. And as soon as I do Command T, we see that entire image is selected, even though the top and bottom portions of that image are not visible. Okay? I'm going to hold my Shift key down. This is super important. Hold your Shift key down and always deal with your corners. Don't pull from these mid boxes or these mid handles on your image. And if you do, this is what happens. It squashes your photo, makes it bad. And so what I'm going to do right now is do a Command Z, which puts it back to where it was. Now I'm going to hold the Shift key down, and I'm going to pull up from a corner. And what I want you to notice here is that the dimensions of the photo stay the same. Nothing's getting squashed, nothing goes skinny, it stays the same. So I'm going to bring the bottom right to the bottom of my new image here. I'm going to bring the top down to the border of my new image. And my little puppy now fits. I love puppies. All right. So to complete this task, I have to go to that all-important selection tool. If I click it, it's going to ask me, do you want to apply this? And you say, or I will say, yes. There it is, applied. I'm going to move my puppy over to the right. Looks like it belongs there. Now I'm going to go to layer 2. Now the way I can work on layer 2, I have to select it. Okay. Now if I try to move my puppy, nothing happens because I'm working with layer 2. There's the tree back there. Okay. And the reason the tree is moving is because I've selected the layer of the tree. If I want to go back to the puppy, I select layer 3, and there's my puppy. Command Z puts him right back. So let's work on layer 2 here. For this purpose, I'm going to turn my puppy off. Okay, still there. It's not visible. And then I'm going to do a Command T again. And even though I've done a Command T, you can't notice the boundaries of it because it's such an enormous image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shrink the overall pane so that I can see it. So Command minus shrinks things, Command minus, and here you get a full vision of how large that image is. Excuse me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shrink the image just like I did the puppy. I'm going to hold the Shift key down and I'm going to pull my corners in. So there it is. I'm going to pull it all the way to, well, I'm going to do it closely. It's so far away. Just do it closely and then I'll zoom in and finish the job. I'm going to bring this all the way down. Okay, I'm not done, so I'm going to just Command plus, get a little bit closer. There I am. Bring my top down. I'm holding the Shift key down. You don't hold the Shift key, you squash or stretch your image. This looks like it's fitting reasonably well for me, so I'm going to go ahead and hit the selection tool. It's going to ask me to apply. Yes, I want to apply. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Command minus, there we go, everything fits. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my puppy, and I'm going to move my tree. Notice I still have layer 2 selected, which is where the tree is. I can either grab it, move it over, or I can use the arrows on my keyboard. Move slowly if I hit the arrows one at a time, but if I hold the Shift key down, it moves a little bit faster. And that's what I like to do. So there it is. Those two are fitting reasonably well together. Now I'm going to turn them both off. And we're going to deal with the child here. Okay? So I'm still on the tree layer even though it's off. So if I wanted to work on the child, I wouldn't be able to unless I select the layer that has the child on it. Okay, so that's where I am now. Command T for transform. Holding the Shift key down, I am pulling up a corner. Trying to pull up a corner. There we go. Pull down the corner. And that looks pretty good. To complete this function, I go back to the select tool, apply. Okay. Now I'm going to turn on my other two. I still have layer 1 selected. I have my selection tool, so if I pull over, okay, so I've still got the little kid working here. All right. And that's what I'm looking to do. Notice the extra white space here. I'm going to get rid of that now. The way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to crop the image. I'm going to go to this tool just below it, and I'm going to select everything I want to keep. So I selected it. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And as you notice right here, there's extra white space. The selection tool is on, so if I hit the arrow key, I can move it over just a little bit, and it's perfect. Okay, doesn't matter that it goes off. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to Image and Crop. There it is. The ants are running around. That means selection is still in play, which will prevent me from doing things. So I want to turn that off, and I do that with the deselect tool. So Command D turns off the ants. I call them the ants. They look like ants running around in a line. And there we go. So I've got my 3 images on there. Now what I need to do for this assignment is to write rule of thirds right across the top. So I'm going to go to my text function here. I'm going to click on it. Just click once. I didn't draw a text box. I just clicked once. I'm going to type rule of thirds. Notice that I'm all caps. And I'm going to select it now. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to choose Avenir. AV. There's Avenir right there. Let's just go with the straight. Well, let's just go with Avenir Black. Go with it. Avenir Black makes it thicker. All right. There it is. So notice where I am here. Rule of thirds is not at the topmost layer. It's on the left, and that's why it only shows on top of the little kid, because the little kid is layer 1, and this is on top of layer 1. It's underneath layer 2 and under 3. So let's make it fully visible by simply dragging this to the top. There it is. Rule of thirds is on top. It's on top of all 3 photos. Okay? What I want to do now is I'm going to enlarge rule of thirds so that it stretches from here all the way over. And the way that I do that is by Command T again. What we did before is we shrank those images. With our text, we're going to enlarge it. Okay, so I'm going to go to the Shift key again, and I'm going to pull a corner. Instead of pushing it, I'm going to pull that corner. And this is the quick and easy way to enlarge. Trackpad will work here. To enlarge your words. All right. So there it is. I need to complete this operation by hitting the selection tool, apply. All right, so take a look. A little bit difficult to read rule of thirds because in the middle of this photo of the tree, it's white. So I'm going to move it up to the top here. A little bit easier to read, not so much on the bottom. So yeah, I'm going to leave it right there. Last thing I want you to do, turn it down just a little bit. I like this kid's face. Cute kid, cute puppy. I want to maintain the cuteness here. So I'm going to turn down the opacity. So the opacity, when you turn it down, it provides the opportunity to look through your letters a little bit. Okay? Still blocking the puppy a little bit, but at 50%, I can see that cute face if I try hard. So I have to work at it a little bit, but there it is. Okay, so there we go. Last thing we want to do is we want to save our assignments. I'm going to ask you to save your assignments in 2 ways. So take a look here. I'm going to go File, Save As, and a couple of things. I want to save back to the folder that I started from. It's on my desktop, Compositional Elements, Rule of Thirds. This is where I'm putting it. Okay, so this is the title up top. So I'm going to change it to Rule of Thirds. And it's going to save as a PSD, which is a Photoshop document. So I want you to save it as a Photoshop document first. I already have a file that I've done for a previous class called Rule of Thirds. So I'm going to cancel. I'm going to call it Rule of Thirds 2 so that I can save it in there. It's going to say maximize compatibility. We're going to say OK. And we just saved Rule of Thirds to PSD. Okay? I'm going to ask you to save it in a different file format. File, Save As. We've got Rule of Thirds to PSD because it's a Photoshop document. Now I'd like you to change the format to a JPEG. Okay? And we see that it's a JPG there. Rule of Thirds to JPG. And I'm going to save that. Okay, let's always go high on these as far as quality of image. Click OK. Notice that it's still a PSD here. So let's go in and open the JPEG, and I just want to show you the differences here. We did Rule of Thirds 2. So here it is. So right now, here's the PSD. Here's the JPEG. Looks exactly the same. And why shouldn't it? Came from the same finished product. Here's the difference. On a JPEG, we have one layer. It's the background layer. On PSD, it maintains all the layers that we worked with. So if I want to, for instance, move the text to the bottom, I can do that by opening up the PSD. If I go here, I cannot move the text to the bottom because, as you see, it's locked. Everything solidifies into one layer when you save it as a JPEG. If you want to maintain your ability to edit your photo in the future, save it as a PSD. Okay? So that's the main difference between PSD and JPEGs. For this assignment, I'm asking you to save it in both forms. All right? That's your first assignment. I'm asking you to do the same operation for all 6 of your compositional elements today. By doing this over and over again, 6 times, you should get into the swing of this first introductory operation. Okie doke, this is Mr. McCarthy signing off.